Good evening and welcome to This Week in Review. Tonight's stories include BBS Christmas Radio Show a great success, SJCH Awards Night, A.J. Matthews Elementary School Christmas Concert. These stories plus community events, the BBS Playbill, Off the Rack and more coming up after this.
I'm Cliff Chatterton, the CEO of the War Amps. I would like to take this opportunity of thanking this station for using our productions. Oh yes, we do them in-house, but they are of very high quality. Proof? Ask about the many international awards they win. However, without the cooperation of this station, the important messages they contain would never get to the public.
On Sunday, December the 16th, BBS hosted its annual Christmas radio show. We began taking Christmas greetings at 2 p.m. A total of 400 greetings were sent out over our airways. The BBS volunteers were very busy taking calls. They were also in charge of the music and calling out greetings over the air. As you can see, the BBS studio was very busy. The volunteers are a very important part of the Burgeo broadcasting system, for without them, none of our programming would run. We are very proud of the job they do here for us. We congratulate them on a job well done. On Monday of this week, St. John's Central High School held its annual awards night. Master of Ceremonies for the evening was Student Council Vice President Kayla Lushman, and she welcomed everyone. Reverend Mave was invited to do the invocation. Mayor Ann brought greetings and congratulations from the town. Dina Marsden brought greetings and congratulations from the school council. Joey Strickland was the next speaker, and he told a little about the activities and who the members of the student councils were. Mr. Linehan presented the principal's address, including some statistics on student testing and, of course, some jokes. Next on the agenda was the presentation of diplomas by Mr. Durnford. Presentations of scholarships were up next. Some of the scholarships included the Calder Scholarship, valued at $500, went to Mark Tucker. The A.J. Billard Memorial Scholarship, valued at $500, went to Crystal Aris. The $100 Sam Collier Memorial Scholarship was presented to Melissa Neal. And the $250 Foodland Franchise Scholarship went to Tanya Piercy. A total of $3,215 in scholarship was awarded. Our MHA, the Honorable Calvin Parsons, was present and congratulated our students. The Principal's Award of Excellence Diploma was awarded to the students who achieved 90 or higher averages. Mr. Parsons got the honor of presenting the students with the academic trophies.
Angela Peterson, grade 8. Linda Batcher, grade 9. Paul Mayer, grade 10. Joey Strickland, grade 11. And Tanya Piercy, grade 12. Ladies and gentlemen, St. John's Finals.
The Sea Cadet Band took care of the closing with Old Canada and the Ode to Newfoundland. We congratulate all the students on another successful year. The awards night will be shown in its entirety at a later date. The A.J. Matthews held its annual Christmas concert on Tuesday of this week. Family and friends gathered at the school gym to be entertained by the students. They were not disappointed. The students sang songs, recited poems, and acted out skits. Here's a look. concert will be shown in its entirety at a later date. Stay tuned for more of This Week in Review coming up after this.
Limmy Ridge, Hong Kong, Dieppe, Caen, Cap Young. I'm Cliff Chatterton. In the War Amps Never Again video series, the stories are told by the Canadian volunteers who were there. Learn about the Newfoundlanders and Gallipoli, the murder of 130 Canadian POWs in Normandy, the award of a U.S. presidential citation to a Canadian regiment in Korea, the War Amps, preserving Canada's military heritage.
Greg Ealyard dropped by our studio on Wednesday of this week for his regular monthly report. Today in our studio we have with us once again Greg Ealyard from the BDDB. Welcome, Greg.
Thanks again for having me, as usual. My monthly sabbatical over here is certainly always a pleasure to come over and inform the people of Burjo the different initiatives with our board.
It's certainly good to have you because it keeps us up to date and the community up to date as well. We'll start off with the status of the Barry Group proposal.
As probably people have listened to the media announcements lately, Minister Reid, the Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture, has certainly been pushing the whole concept of the seal industry, and certainly as it relates to Burjo at the end of the day. They might have realised as well as that there was a proposal put on the table to the Federal Minister of Fisheries to increase the quota of seals due to the fact that the demand for seal pelt and seal fur right now is certainly extremely high. However, the Minister has determined that the quota of 275,000 pelts will remain. However, that's still being very positive because last year there was only probably about 220,000 pelts taken, so there was certainly quota left in the water. And if in fact things come to fruition as we hope at the end of the day, then certainly there should be enough pelts to supply the Norwegian company as well as the potential company here in Burjo and of course Catalan at the same time. So we certainly feel positive from that perspective that it shouldn't have any adverse effect at all. Obviously, Mr. Berry's been lobbying the last couple of years to increase the seal pelt quotas, and I think they'll continue to do that as time moves on and demand in the marketplace for it keeps moving forward, hopefully positively upward. I think one issue that probably people should know in the community at this point in time is that on the 23rd of December, our minister, as well as Minister Reid, will be meeting with Bill Barry as well as the president of the Norwegian company to sit down in a face-to-face meeting to basically iron out a few what we would consider, I guess at this point in time, minor differences, and at the end of the day, basically what they're looking for is a consensus and agreement to be able to move this forward in terms of processing raw seal pelts into garment finished product in Newfoundland and Labrador, and that's the bottom line. And hopefully what will evolve from that situation is there might be a win-win situation where obviously there's concern of what's going to happen in Dildo if in fact the pelts start coming to Burjo, and there has to be a consideration and a feeling for the people in that community as well, and I've stated it certainly one time before. But I don't think the people of Burjo would appreciate it at all if they knew that they were going to actually get jobs on the back of people of Dildo. So I think if there's a situation where it can be worked out amicable to everybody at the end of the day and the policy can be changed through government, and certainly I think it would be beneficial for everybody. So right now we're going to wait and see what happens in the meeting on the 23rd, and hopefully something positive will happen in the new year. So we're expecting early in the new year that our minister will make some type of announcement or meet with local representatives to fill us in on all the details of that meeting.
Very good. It sounds like it's going well. Our sea urchin development.
Yeah, as people in the community are well aware, for the last year and a half or more, we've been working with local proponents to try and move the development of a processing facility forward in this community with sea urchins. The last 4 months or so, we've again been working with an industry partner, the Ship Raw Resource, to Winterton, where they do the processing right now and of course ship it off to the marketplace. Our harvesting has been fairly successful here so far. The quality of the sea urchin being shipped to Winterton is as good, if not better, than anything the company's ever seen, and that's a very positive sign for us. And right now we're into a situation where we've called for engineers to do the development of the facility for us, and we're still anticipating that by the latter part of January, early February, we'll begin construction of the facility. We have proposals for funding into a number of different agencies, Department of Fisheries and Aquaculture for training, as well as HRDC under the Labour Market Development Agreement for labour to do the construction. And of course, the COA has right now our full business plan that they are actually reviewing, doing the environmental assessment on, and we hope, like I say, that by the middle of January we'll get the word and be able to proceed. I think one thing to note is that we've insisted at this point in time through HRDC that any construction happens, we want to see insurable weeks, because it is tied into creating sustainable jobs at the end of the day. This is not a make-work project. From our perspective, this is going to be seasonal, sustainable employment. We know the resources in the area. We are working, I'm pleased to say, with a number of other zones within our region. They are doing resource identification programs now as we speak, based on a template that actually we developed for our studies here. And I've got letters of understanding with those different zones that if in fact they identify a sustainable resource, that they are prepared to try and work with us to provide this facility here with raw resource for primary processing. So the more we can get on side within this region, it'll be less strain on the local resource here, and we'll be able to provide a good sustainable industry that'll last certainly for a long time. So we're very positive about it moving forward. Our goal is still the end of January, early February to be able to start. We know how agencies work sometimes, and maybe my anticipations and hopes might be a little bit dashed at times, but that's what we're working towards right now. I've been given basically every indication that could very well happen if everything moves forward the way we anticipate it. So, you know, if everything goes well, then that's when we're planning on starting. And of course, the ultimate goal is that we will be up and doing primary processing October 1, year 2002, with approximately 50 people involved in the harvesting, diving, and processing in the community. So, you know, it's something that's there, it's tangible, and we feel it can work. As a matter of fact, myself and the proponent over Christmas, we have a meeting scheduled on the 29th in Winterton to deal with things like technology transfer, our partnership arrangements, and certainly we're hoping at the same time, because I've never seen the actual processing of sea urchin, and neither of our proponents, so we're really anxious to get up there. We've seen the facility a number of times, and it's always been empty, so it'll be an educational process for us to see exactly what happens with the urchin when they get landed at the facility and move forward from there. So our meeting is scheduled for the 29th, so it should be an interesting meeting at that time as well.
Well, it certainly sounds very positive for the sea urchin. We haven't been hearing much about them. I know you've been working on it, but we haven't heard much about it, but that's really positive. On to waste management proposal.
Yeah, about 6 months ago, I put a proposal on the table to the 4 communities in the region wanting to look at the potential of studying the whole concept of how waste management is done in Francois, Grey River, Ramsey, and Burjo, with an eye to 2 things: reducing solid waste and also the potential of developing a recycling program which could employ some sustainable individuals, albeit maybe my projections would be 2 or 3, but still in reality you do 2 things: it becomes environmentally friendly, and number 2, you potentially create again additional sustainable jobs. That project has been approved. We signed off on it about a month ago. Well, no, I shouldn't say that, about 2 weeks ago. But due to the fact that it's the time of year, obviously the consultants that we have online are not prepared to come in here in the middle of winter, because they're not going to get the full picture of actually what's happening on these 4 solid waste sites. So we've decided that we're going to wait till spring, sometime the latter part of March, before we initiate the process. We've invited a member from each community to sit on an overall committee to ensure that the project gets taken care of as we see fit. And of course, our whole purpose again is it's not a study as in a study. It's going to be, at the end of the day, a working document. If we can find some ways and means to either eliminate a number of incinerators in the different communities, find a place that becomes a hub for solid waste management for the 4 communities, and then in turn develop some recycling programs that at the end of the day are going to benefit everybody. And we know, for example, Burjo has a recycling program with cans and that kind of stuff. Well, there's companies out there now that are dealing in plastics. They're crying for plastics. For example, there's a Nova, which is a company, Nova Plastics, which is a company just opened up in Corner Brook. They're making plastic woods. They're looking for that type of material. And there's other companies that are looking for recycled newspapers, and et cetera, and on it goes. So if you can do it jointly with the 4 communities coming together and providing all these recycled materials, it becomes economically viable. And then, of course, in turn, there has to be individuals that has to separate, pack that, and ship it. And, of course, the revenues generated from it would provide sustainable employment at the end of the day. So that's our goal. Now, whether or not we have enough volumes of those types of recycled material to be able to do it, that's really where the study would come into play. And even as simple as metals, like I know the town of Burgeo itself has a problem at times, being the biggest community, even trying to get people to come down here and take the metals, the old carry wrecks and that kind of stuff. But if you add the 4 communities together, it might be a situation where it becomes very economically viable on a regular basis to have somebody come down here and you ship and get rid of all that material, because there is a major market for metals. And so it could be a very positive step, not just from the environmental aspect, but again from a sustainable employment aspect at the same time. And of course, we all know in this day and age, to me, it ties into tourism, because the tourists that are traveling now are mainly environmentally friendly. They want to go into communities that are consider themselves environmentally friendly. And of course, we all know that if you travel by boat to Ramey, one of the first things you see is the smoke, and then you see the incinerator. If you go into Grey River or France Way, it's the same thing. Burgeo is probably the only community that's really hidden in terms of the incinerator. So those things have an effect on your tourism traffic and what you can attract as well. So we think that by dealing with that issue as well, it'll not only help those issues, but it certainly could enhance the overall tourism appeal in the communities as well. So there's a number of spin-off benefits to this whole perspective. And again, at the end of the day, it's a working document. If it's on, then we're going to approach the Multi-Material Stewardship Board for funding to eliminate or try and enhance and develop a regional solid waste program, if in fact the study proves it out to be it. So we're really interested in it. We're hoping that by sometime the end of June that whole study will be completed, and then we'll be able to move forward throughout the course of the next 6 months to implement the recommendations and move forward from there. And of course, the recycling depot here, again, it'll be something that we'll, as part of the study, work in conjunction with and hopefully cooperate and enhance the recycling program that's already existing in Burgeo, which the outlying communities already use. So it certainly could be a very exciting initiative moving forward.
I think that that program with the recycling and that is a whole new world for us that could open up so many more doors, because when you go in, you're talking, I know in the major centers they separate their garbage, into plastics and like you just named them off. So like that's just,
yeah.
We can't identify with that.
No, and
but if we have a recycling program, we probably could be able to do it.
And the key, of course, is volumes. They can, the bigger centers, yes, they separate their papers. I mean, you go into the larger centers, and I mean, they've got 3 garbage bins. Yep. And it's, one for plastics and all this other stuff, and then there's one for your actual garbage that you can't do. And I mean, they don't even let you permit anymore anything that's compostable. It has to go in a separate container, and then of course you have all your paper print and all that stuff in another one. And because they have such major volumes, it's worthwhile to everybody to get involved in it. And that's going to be the key to us, is determine what the volumes are, and if we can justify these recycling programs, and hopefully we will at the end of the day. Okay,
well that is another positive thing for our community. Our short-term projects. What's up with that now?
Yep, we, as I mentioned at the last time, we applied for a number of different short-term initiatives, as well as when the minister was in here for the tourism dinner, he did announce to me that he had provided us with some emergency employment funding. And of course, there was, I won't say strings attached to it, but with the provincial government, with emergency funding, they always have their criteria as well. And the biggest criteria that they put on that funding was that there had to be no income in a household at all, was their number 1 criteria. And of course, that was husband and wife, son, daughter, that kind of thing. And that was the bottom line. And of course, the second thing that they had there is that we had to ensure that people would become EI eligible once they finished, the emergency funding. And of course, after that, our criteria kicked in terms of the board. So of course we advertised. I'm pleased to say that we had over 35 applications. However, there was only, I think it was 50 people that actually fit the criteria from the provincial government standpoint, and we managed to accommodate all of those individuals that actually fit the government's criteria. And we didn't even have to move into the board's hiring policy in terms of that initiative. So that was something beneficial, and of course they are involved in a number of different initiatives. We are partnering with the town of Burgeo. They have provided some material dollars, and right now within the community they're basically doing a lot of enhancement work, and people who seem involved in building cement garbage cans. There's a new sign got to be constructed and put up in the entrance to Burgeo with a planter, and all kinds of, if you want, odd jobs around the community, and that will certainly enhance things at the end of the day. So we're pleased that the minister, came forward and assisted us in that. As a matter of fact, it just came to mind, we're also going to upgrade the cross-country ski trail, widen it out, and try and enhance that as well, because I think it was 4 or 5 years ago it was originally constructed, and it does need a bit of work And I think it's a nice added, attraction to the community, not just as a summer trail, but certainly for cross-country skiing. So they're involved in that. We also have a number of different other initiatives on the table that we presented to HRDC short term, and we're expecting that within the next couple of days we'll hear about those, and of course we'll move those initiatives forward in the new year. I think one thing that I'd like to clarify at this point in time is that there's been some confusion in regards to the museum project versus projects the BDDB have been involved in and moving forward as our responsibility. There's been a misconception or a misunderstanding in the community that the Burgeo Diversification Development Board is actually the ones sponsoring and running the museum project. And in reality, we were initially involved and asked to get involved in terms of the reviewing the whole initiative and upgrading the museum, writing the proposal, and of course lobbying to get the funding put in place to do it, which we were successful as a whole in achieving. And of course, once that was done, because the Museum Committee and Town Council, while the Museum Committee runs the facility and Town Council owns it, it became their initiative after that. So the hiring and the overall supervision and management of that project is actually with, conjunction with the Town and Museum Committee. And that I'd like people to know that we weren't even involved in the hiring. And that's what happens in a lot of cases in the community, is that we are involved with the different groups and organizations in trying to move their initiatives forward in terms of, proposal writing and lobbying and getting the funding. But normally if we have a sponsor with us, and at the end of the day, it really becomes, once that's approved, it becomes their responsibility from the hiring right on through to the supervision and the overall management of the project. And who they hire really is not dictated by the BDDB. We don't even sit around the table, and we don't want to. I mean, that becomes their responsibility. We have our own. And certainly there was a bit of a conflict in perception there that there was an individual that was hired on the museum that was originally hired on a project sponsored by the BDDB. And I've met with a couple of different individuals in the community that had concerns, and that's fine. And like I've said to people many times, if you have concerns or whatever, then call me or make an appointment and come in and see me, and we can straighten away the situation. Especially in this one, because it became a major misunderstanding of really what transpired here, and I filled those people in, and I did promise that I would try and clarify today in regards to the projects. And we do have our own hiring policy in place, and we try to follow those guidelines very strictly when we're involved in any of those things of that nature.
But other than that, you, like say for the town and the museum committee, they would have their own hiring policy.
Yeah,
they don't follow under your jurisdiction at all.
No, and we can't really dictate them. Like, I wouldn't want to go into the town manager or the museum committee or even ground search and rescue, or even like we've worked with a number of local companies here who wound up getting projects, through assistance from us, and that's what we're here for. But at the end of the day, when they do their hiring, I mean, they hire who they hire. And I mean, if somebody's been on a BDDB project and a private individual or another organization decides to hire that individual, I mean, at this point in time, we can't really turn around and say, listen, I don't think you should, because we just finished with that person on a project. And it's really up to them at the end of the day what they want to do and how they want to run their project, right? So, again, it's more for clarification and understanding in the community, because there was a feeling out there that, oh my God, what's the BDDB doing, giving certain people jobs all the time. And I think people have heard me basically say, in terms of our hiring policy, I mean, the foreman, yes, we have we basically hire the foreman based on qualification. And if it's a foreman that happened to work with us before, then, I'm sorry, but that's the best qualified person we feel we get to get the job done. Because irrespective of people feel that it's make-work projects, there's still that ultimate goal that we have to get a project done at the end of the day. And if we get a project done that's pleasing, good quality, then the next project we go for is going to be that much easier. And I'll give you an example. We did one major initiative in Ramia. It took 2 years to try and work with a federal government department. And it was done. It was completed this year. And basically they're to the point now wanting to work with us because they see the quality of work that was done. And that's our ultimate goal at the end of the day. Yes, getting people involved in these short-term projects is definitely a benefit, but it needs to be things done and completed at the end of the day that are also going to benefit the community. And that's what we have to look for. In terms of the other individuals, whether they be carpenters or labor, our policy is basically in place that we take people that require the least number of hours to be EI eligible. And of course, we basically go down through the list. So if somebody only needs 39 hours, what we do is we take all the individuals and we list them, and then we write down hours they require to be EI eligible, whether it's a JCP program or whether it's an insurable one, because that's the criteria, unfortunately, we've got. Now, I won't say unfortunately, is that's the criteria we've developed to try to be fair to everybody. Now, some people have come back and said, well, JCP is not insurable, so how come you're using ours? But we have to use something. And I mean, I can go back and probably tell you horror stories of different ways and means that hiring was done before, but to us, this seems to be the fairest way, and everybody knows it. What we do is we take the list of names, we write them down, and then, of course, we put down the number of hours they require to be eligible. And then all we do is we work our way backwards from the lowest up to the number if we only got 10 jobs, then it stops at the 10th person. And that's the people we hire, and we haven't deviated from it. The other thing that we do is that we, as part of our overall policy, that anybody who's been on a project with us within the last 12 months is not eligible for a 12-month period. So if somebody got on a project in December this year, they could not reapply again until at least December of next year. And that doesn't matter if it's a JCP or insurable weeks. It's still a project that's sponsored and run, and this is the key, run and managed by the BDDB. Okay. And that's our policy. Yeah, and the other thing that I would say to people in the community, I've had a number of people come in and, say to me, and a little bit in jest, and yet they feel it, in some ways that, I feel you guys got a blacklist in here, and I'm not, I haven't been on a project, or I'm not getting on a project, and blah, blah, blah. And number one, I want to assure people that we don't have any blacklist. We have a policy, and that if anybody in the community wants a copy of that policy, the BDDB is here to serve the residents of this community. If anybody wants a copy of that policy, all they got to do is phone or come in the office, and we'll give them a copy of the policy. Because I think I've tried, I know in the last year or 2 years I've been here, is to let people know that we do have a policy in place, we follow it, and we stick to it, and I know that, and I wouldn't be here saying it if I didn't. If we deviated from that, I'd be the first one to say it. And if people feel that they need more information on the policy, and there's rationale why we do it, and why the policy is in place, and it's basically to try and give everybody a fair and equitable chance in these projects, rather than pulling hats one day, pulling names out of a hat one day, or determining who's employed in whose house, and all these other kinds of foolish things that are really nobody else's business. And to us, the fairest way to do it is right now the policy we got in place. Having said that, the last point I want to make is that, and I've said this to a number of people, is the policy we have now is we've thought it out. However, if somebody has an idea and a better way to develop a hiring policy that they feel that's still going to be fair to everybody, I mean, that's the key. And not because it's going to suit their situation or somebody else's they know at the end of the day. It's got to be a policy that's going to fair for everybody. Then our board is more than receptive. And all they have to do is write a letter, and I'll ensure it gets on our agenda. If they've got an idea or a way that they feel that the hiring policy should be done, then I would have no problem in taking it back to the board. But right now, like I've said to a number of people, basically that's what I can come up with at this point in time that I know is at least fair. It mightn't be the best one, but at least it's fair. And if anybody has an idea out there, then we're certainly more than willing to entertain the situation.
Okay, well, we certainly, excuse me, thank you for joining us. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I just, at our last board meeting, we certainly, talked with the Christmas season and that coming up, and certainly on behalf of the board and staff of the BDDB, it's been a pleasure working with the people of the community again. It's certainly been enjoyable for me and interesting. And I'd just like to, again, on behalf of the board, wish everybody in the community a safe and happy Christmas and New Year's. And certainly we look forward to working with everybody again in the coming new year with a few, hopefully, very exciting initiatives that could create some half-decent employment within the community. And again, I'd like to thank the BBS for your support during the year. It's always a pleasure coming over here, and certainly will continue on in the new year.
Well, it's always our pleasure to have you. So thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Now over to Mayor Ann with the council report.
Good evening. Burgeo Town Council report for Wednesday, December 19th, 2001. Items up for discussion at our meeting. Our meeting was fairly long. We started at 7. We didn't finish till after 10. Items up for discussion was the number one item, of course, was the water treatment plant. Brooks Enterprises of Corner Brook has been awarded the contract for Phase 1. Phase 1 came in the amount of $917,125. Phase 2 will be going to tender early in the new year, and it is estimated that Phase 1 can be completed by the end of July or the 1st of August. Phase 1 is mainly work up in the pond there with the berm, which is to go across to stop the wave motion. and also the construction of the building, and is mainly outside construction, whereas Phase 2 is mainly the purchasing and installing of equipment. And it is estimated that Phase 1 and Phase 2 can be completed by November of the year 2002. So after that, of course, we could certainly expect to see a big improvement in our water. Early in the new year, it is Council hopes to sit down with the contractor and with Atlantic Engineering and go over some things and get to know each other. It is estimated that construction will begin on April the 1st. And even with that starting date, the contractor feels certain that he can have the project completed by the end of July, the 1st of August. In view of this and giving the poor economic position of our town, a letter was or will be sent to Brooks Enterprise, and in that letter we will be encouraging them and requesting them to use local labor, purchase locally, and use local contractors wherever possible. However, having requested that from them, we are also requesting that at no time should they sacrifice quality work, as quality on the job is the most important factor. So that's something to really look forward to as we go into the new year. Council took possession of its new leak detecting equipment. The operators haven't been quite brought up to speed on how to operate it yet, but over the next week or so, I guess Clayt will become pretty well ginned up on how that works, and so hopefully that we can see some improvement in trying to detect and locate the leaks. Our museum, I'm sure some of you have taken notice that that work is progressing really, really good. With regard to the murals, we seem like we may have run into a glitch as far as getting the proper job done. But at the present time, what we're still toying back and forth in our minds is to probably do the two ends and the side, maybe with some special paint to do the bottom area to make it look like the sea and put some waves in there. Then get some stencils made of dories and boats and oil flyers and navigation lights, trawlers, and so on, something depicting the sea. And to that end, Deputy Mayor Linehan is going to try to employ the services of the students, and we still hopes to make the museum have a distinct look in our community. If you remember when I made the last broadcast, I said the museum committee was looking for some volunteers. We're very thankful that one volunteer did come forward, Mrs. Gloria Domini, and there's still room for one or two more on that committee. If someone so feels inclined, give Stan Kosser a call at the town hall. And thank you very much, Gloria, for volunteer to serve on the museum committee. Another project which we have going on right now, I don't know if any of you have taken notice to it, but it's a make work project, and with this project, where the new Welcome to Burgeo, the Welcome to Burgeo sign is being renewed. That's going to take on an old new look, and along with that, we're having a number of cement or concrete garbage cans being poured. So come next year, you're going to see quite a number, quite an increase in the number of garbage receptacles around town, and I think you will find it will also be an improvement in what we're using at the present time. So little jobs like that is what, when they're all pulled together and put together, end up making a big improvement in the infrastructure of our town. Regarding the fish plant, seal tannery, whatever you want to call it, it is our understanding, Councillor Reid informed us, and there's been conversations with Minister Parsons, most of the dealings in this project is being dealt with by Minister Parsons, Minister Reid, and with Mr. Barry. It appears as if it's moving along about as good as you could expect. There's a joint meeting on January the 23rd, a very important meeting, and after that I would assume that we'll have a better understanding in what's going to happen and which way it's going to happen. So, you know, it's something to look forward to in the new year. Minister Parsons also sent along a copy of a letter which he sent to Mr. Dhaliwal. I don't know if any of you saw it, but there was an article in the Navigator regarding this American ship which was arrested and brought to port outside the 200-mile limit fishing crab in the area where we wanted crab. Well, in that article, the ship was the Mr. B. It was brought out that Canada had very little history out in that area other than the exploratory fishery which was carried out and brought into Burgeo in 1999. I brought this to Minister Parsons' attention. He removed it from the Navigator, copied it, and along with a letter sent it off to Mr. Dhaliwal. Not that it's going to accomplish much, but it just makes one more little dig in Burgeo's historical role with regard to crab outside of 200 Mile. Regarding the boil order water, it's been quite a test. But anyway, we had results come back today from the boil order. That was samples which were taken on Monday, the 17th of December. The town manager received the results this afternoon. That's Wednesday, December the 19th. And all samples were good. There's more samples gone to Corner Brook this morning as I speak to you, and no doubt before this report is out, the results of those samples will be back. If we must get 2 successive free samples, free of coliforms, 2 successive samples before the boil order is removed. So it's looking that we may get off the boil order, but until we do, then we're still on the boil order and treat it as such. Another matter which Council dealt with was the slowness at which we were able to access the lab and get testing done of our water. You know, it was taking us over 50 hours. You take a sample on Monday morning, and we couldn't get the results until Wednesday afternoon. This is much, much too slow compared to in St. John's, where they can take in their samples, drop them right off at the lab, and within 24 hours they got the results. Council is not pleased with this, and therefore we will be writing the Minister of Provincial Affairs and advising him of this and trying to see if there isn't something that can be done that when a town is put on a boil order, that we can do something and get results back a whole lot faster than what Burgeo have experienced during this boil order. Snow clearing policy, the town manager presented us with a snow clearing policy. There's not much change in what we have been doing in the past. Mainly the snow clearing is at the discretion of the town manager. However, one thing which we did bring in, and it's a thing which I got the most complaints about in the previous 4 years, was in the real narrow streets such as in Messers and Smalls Island and so on. You know, they should be one-way streets, but you know, it's impossible. So therefore, these streets should be getting attention in future a little bit faster with regard to widening. You know, you won't get your street open any faster, I don't think. But with regard to widening, before you go on to the larger streets and start widening and making parking space and so on, then these narrow streets will receive attention a little bit faster, and therefore you won't have the incidents, or hopefully you won't have the incidents that's been in the past, whereby one fellow had to back up to let the other one pass, maybe even a couple of days after a storm had ended. The 2002 budget for the town of Burgeo was approved. We held a meeting on Sunday afternoon regarding that and dealt with that subject exclusively. And I'm very pleased to say that no, there will not be any tax increases of any kind for the town of Burgeo again for the year 2002. The budget is $987,512. That is the income and that is the expenditure. This year we will have a surplus of $16,539 as compared to a surplus of last year of $34,437. You know, it's I guess you would call it a practically old fort type of budget with not much being done. But, you know, it's the way that we feel we should go during those times. Just old things the way it is, try to maintain the services that we do have. And just going down through, you know, in the year 2003, we'll have $34,000 worth of money will be freed up from dip charges, which will be ended by December 2002. So, you know, play our cards right, spin prudently, and hopefully we can go down the road without any tax increases in Burgeo. And I think if most of you have been listening, you'll find that there's very few towns that can do that. Most towns this year have had to increase their taxes. However, we're holding our own, and hopefully that'll get us over a few humps, and maybe who knows how long Burgeo can go without a tax increase. Another subject was the cemetery road. Some time ago, the town was approached by the cemetery committee and also by Minister Parsons with regard to trying to do with the upgrading of the cemetery road. Now, the town is not responsible for that road. However, the town said that they would form a partnership with the cemetery committee and with the MHA in the sense that we would use our equipment, form a partnership to upgrade the road, and we would give some time, I believe it was something like $3,500, $4,000 worth of machinery and employees' time to upgrade that road. However, we received a letter from the cemetery committee that they're unable to keep up their part of the partnership, so therefore there's nothing further is required of council in that regard. I mentioned some time ago about the kiosks out at the end of the road. Plans for that have been finalized. They've been submitted. Discussions have been held with Bill Matthews. Just build like a rest stop out there. The estimated cost is $39,000, of which the town of Burgeo will pay $2,000. It's a pretty nice project that we've got put together there, and quite optimistic, feels good, and about that it probably will get approved. So, you know, once it do, if anyone want to drop by and look at the plans that we got for out there, then by all means do so. They're at the town hall. Fire hydrants, portable pumps. Town received a letter from the fire chief on behalf of the fire department requesting that more fire hydrants be put in town, and highlighted the problem they're having with their portable pump. In view of that, they only had one pump, and the problem which they experienced a short time ago, council gave approval to purchase a new portable pump. The pump is approximately $3,500. It is much more portable due to its weight, and will be ordered immediately. With regard to more fire hydrants around town, council discussed this, a very lengthy discussion, and everything was dealt with. It appears, well, it doesn't appear, but the Canadian Underwriters Association have given Burgeo an A1 fire rating position, and they feel that Burgeo has adequate firefighting equipment, fire hydrants, and so on. However, even after saying that, you know, council is certainly not saying that there's not a need probably for a few more fire hydrants around town. And it is possible that there may be more fire hydrants go in. But council is not looking at it as as a priority item at the present time. And with the new pump and so on, we feel that given the number of hydrants around town, given the ponds and the oceans and so on which can be accessed for water, our fire protection does appear to be adequate. However, Council very much appreciated the interest of the fire department in bringing this to Council's attention, and by no means should it be concluded that there will not be any more fire hydrants. I feel certain there will be more fire hydrants come to Burgeo, beyond a word of a doubt. However, you know, you can only protect yourself so far, and you've got to prioritize, Council have got to prioritize where it spends its money. And so therefore we say thank you to the fire department for their interest in getting more hydrants. I have no doubt in my mind that within the near future, possibly there will be more fire hydrants, areas which we feel that really needs them, probably will get them. Regarding the ducks, well, Council adopted the ducks all right. Things moved along fairly well until Sunday passed, and I guess most of you have heard about the incident, and we built a pen for the ducks and encouraged them to come down to the other end of the pond, and everything was going fine, and they started to use the pen. Then we barred them in so that they wouldn't get out on the ice and get stranded like we did have a few do until the pond was fully frozen and so on. However, on Sunday, some kids decided they would get into the pen with the ducks. Some good citizen informed the RCMP on Sunday afternoon. The RCMP went and drove them clear, barred the gate. I fed the ducks at 4:30. The gate was still barred. However, on Monday morning, I guess someone got into the pen again, and 3 of the ducks were killed. You know, it was, I don't know, it was sickening to see, and the ducks were really stressed out. So that left us then with no decision, with no choice other than to not bar the ducks in, so that at least they'll have room now to move and run away and so on if something gets after them. It was definitely a human being that did it, because the gate was barred. An animal couldn't untie the gate, and neither could it tie it up with a different piece of material after. So, you know, that's the sad part of it. I hope the kids would enjoy the ducks rather than try to kill the ducks or anybody else, whoever did it. I don't think it's anything to be that proud of, but nevertheless, it did happen. And you know, when the birders had the ducks, no doubt they could go over and stay around the house, and there was someone in the house all the time, so people wouldn't go around there and interfere. But, you know, we don't have that luxury anymore. So all I can say is that if anyone sees someone interfering and harassing the birds, that they would call the RCMP or the Burgeo Town Council. We asked for volunteers to help take care of the ducks, and again, I'm very pleased to say Ms. Brenda Sheaves came forward. She was the only one. There's not that much to it. It's just give them a little bowl of food in the morning plus some water once the pond freezes up, and again in the evening. And if 2 or 3 people was doing it, you know, we could set up a schedule week 1, week 2, and it's only for until I guess April, when the pond opens up again and people start feeding them and so on. So, you know, if anyone's so inclined to do that, and you've thought, well, you couldn't do it because you've got a cottage or something in Grandy's River or into Peter Strides or something like that, and you're not around in the summer, well, you know, you don't need to be around in the summer. And we certainly could do with a couple more volunteers. At the present time, I'm doing it until such time as we can figure out just where the feeding spot is going to be, and we just about had that done until the incident on Sunday. So if anyone is interested, just call the town office. Our Economic Development Officer funding, as you know, the town of Burgeo gives $10,000 per year towards that position. Funding for that was discussed. Council is of the opinion that we get good bang for our buck there. We know there's other towns receiving the service and not paying. We couldn't really be influenced by that. We feel by standing on our own feet and being a giver as well as a receiver, we think we're just that much better off by doing that, and we're looked at much more favorably by the Government of Canada in that regard, because we are appearing to do something for ourselves, and so therefore the town of Burgeo agreed to fund that position again in the amount of $10,000. Invoices in the amount of $15,314 was approved for payment. And that was the end of our business for this week, this month, and the year 2001. And therefore, I would like to say and wish each and every one of you a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and look forward to the year 2002. Good evening.
On Friday of this week, students at the St. John Central High School held their annual Christmas talent show. Here are some highlights.
In the silence of her mind, quiet movements, rocking time, traveling for me with her eyes. Now I fall from the sky. No sugar tonight in my coffee, no sugar tonight in my tea, no sugar to stay beside me, no sugar to roll with me. Down, 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 down. Yes, and I believe it when we talk about the things I said. She hasn't got the faith, but she got to believe it when we're standing in each other's way. You're driven back in time to the place you've been to. You wonder what you're gonna find. You know you're wrong, but it won't be long before you leave them all behind. It's you, Mother Nature, taking over.
Stay with us for Off the Rack, the community events, and the BBS Playbill, all after this.
The lawnmower cut off my foot. I slipped down to wet feet and got my hand caught in the mixer tube.
And I went right under the boat, and the motor, it cut my leg.
In a new video by the War Amps called Spot the Danger, kids in the CHAMP program warned that safety is no accident. For more information about the Play Safe program or Spot the Danger, please contact the War Amps.
Play safe.
BBS Playbill. Tune in on Thursday when we'll have a rebroadcast of the Christmas Bandwagon. And I'll be here again next week with This Year in Review. For this week in review, I'm Marie Rose. Good night and God bless.